Hey there, I'm Robert from Metallica, and these are the records of my life.
Thanks very much for checking out Records in My Life. We have a very special guest, Robert Trujillo from Metallica. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
What's been going on lately?
A lot of tour dates, stadiums, big venues. I feel like for the last year we've been sort of going nonstop, but it's been a lot of fun because we started out kind of getting ready to release the album and playing some promotional shows in small venues. We played at the Opera House in Toronto. We played at Webster Hall in New York City, Fonda Theater in LA. Those are very small, intimate settings, and now we're in the biggest stadiums in North America. So it's been an amazing experience.
Was it fun playing like the smaller?
Yeah, small venues are great because you can see everybody. You really can connect with everybody, and sometimes on those shows we'll experiment with the set a bit more and play some deep cuts. Like we play Call of Cthulhu or Orion, which are classic instrumentals, Metal Militia off Kill 'Em All, stuff like that. So it's fun, and then also it's more engaging in terms of we're interacting more with each other on stage because we're sort of there in front of each other, which on the stadium shows you don't get that quite as much because the stages are so big. So it's fun for different reasons, but the stadiums are also incredible too as well. I mean, as long as people show up, of course. If nobody shows up and you're in a stadium, it's not very good.
Right. I don't think you guys have that this day and age.
We're doing all right now.
You're doing okay, right?
Yeah.
Actually, the smaller venue kind of leads me back in your career to, like, you played in Suicidal Tendencies and in California skate punk bands. Give us an album or two that inspired you, like during those days from the California scene.
Well, it's kind of interesting because, I'm going to be 53 actually next month. No, October. Yeah. Yeah, we're getting there. It's coming up.
Don't rush.
I'm getting old. Anyway, so growing up, I was listening to so much great music, ranging from the old Motown releases to James Brown to Led Zeppelin to Black Sabbath and all the way up into Motorhead. And obviously for me, being able to meet my heroes is something that's also incredible. So everybody that I listened to on vinyl, even from when I was a kid, it's been great because some of them become my friends, and Lemmy became a great friend. I've met Jimmy Page a couple times, and that's kind of surreal. Obviously, I played with Ozzy for many years. So vinyl to me was sort of a passage to a fantasy world. Music was a launch pad from the time I was playing air guitar at 5 years old, and the punk movement in LA specifically was really, a lot of it was generated through the skate movement. I grew up in Venice, and we had a lot of that energy with the Dogtown Z-Boys and Jay Adams, Tony Alva, all these guys. I'm a little bit younger than them, but I'd see them around town, and it was just an exciting time for bands in the west side of Los Angeles, whether it was obviously Suicidal, Neighborhood Watch, XL, or Black Flag even, and all the stories that exist before me, the backyard parties you heard about, where a band like Black Flag would have played, and I've been told that Henry Rollins' first gig with Black Flag was actually in West Los Angeles at one of my buddies' house. Of course, you're always going to hear stuff like, everybody, hey, he played in my backyard, but I saw some photos and I'm like, okay, yeah, A lot of stuff was happening in Venice back then, and in that part of the world. And skating and surfing is a part of my life. I still surf. I don't skate anymore. My son is an active skater. He's one of the local kids at Venice and Santa Monica, and he was just skating at Venice Beach today. So I always like having that connection to my lineage and my past, whether it's through music, through vinyl, through surfing and skating.
Was there an album, like, when you reminisce, like you're reminiscing, give us like an album.
I'll give you an album.
Takes you back to those.
Institutionalized by Suicidal Tendencies. I didn't play on that album, but I'll tell you, that was an album that, before I was in the band, I would wear the hat and the t-shirts. And that was even before I knew Mike Muir. I knew Rocky George, the guitar player, because I went to junior high school with him, so I've known him for many years. But that particular album to me really represents where I grew up, and just the progression of alternative music and multiracial bands, and incorporating kind of other styles into hardcore music.
And for people that don't know, you're also a big fan of Jaco Pastorius, which kind of leads me into the next question. You also worked on a film about him.
Yes.
Which, is there an album? Is he one of the main inspirations?
Yes. Jaco Pastorius, I had the great pleasure and good fortune of seeing him perform 4 times when I was younger, of course. And I saw him with Weather Report twice. I saw him with the Word of Mouth Big Band 1 time, and then with a sort of a scaled down version a 4th time. And I actually had an encounter with him in 1985. He was probably my biggest influence in terms of like bass and style and technique. Funny thing is I never really learned a Jaco song specifically back then. I've done that now, of course, but I was inspired by his first solo album, songs like Come On, Come Over, and Donna Lee, and Continuum. Portrait of Tracy was like hearing Eruption by Eddie Van Halen for the first time. I didn't know what instrument it was. He's doing this bass solo using harmonics. It's a composition, incredible. And then when I saw him play, I was just like, this guy's cool, his persona. There was a mystery there. We didn't have the internet back in those days, so you had to go see bands play. You get the albums and you be consumed by the cover and the photos, and then to see him live was like pure magic. Weather Report, the band that he played in, actually, the first album that I was really drawn to was Heavy Weather. Because of a few tracks, but one track specifically called Teen Town, which was a bass solo that he had done, and it just sounded so amazing to me. It was sort of the gateway to, not just jazz specifically, but also, the fusion movement, and then, of course, gravitating towards bands like Rush and a lot of the progressive movement, Brand X, and some of these Gentle Giant, some of these crazy progressive bands. And just being able to see all these bands live was super exciting,
What do you listen to wind down after a show, if you want to?
Well, usually when I wind down after a show, what am I listening to? I'm usually listening to my pillow, because by the time we have dinner and we get out of there, it's time to usually sleep. Kind of 11 o'clock you're off stage, shower, you have dinner, and then depending on if we're traveling or if we're staying somewhere. That's a good question.
Is there an album you like to listen to on like a Sunday?
Yeah, or a long drive.
Long drive.
I enjoy Hendrix, songs like Third Stone from the Sun. I think there's a lot of magic in Hendrix's music, especially the stuff that's a little bit more kind of mellow and psychedelic. that was my go-to tour album for many years. Actually, when I was in Suicidal Tendencies. Now, going back to that time, I remember listening to a lot of Hendrix, listening to a lot of Jane's Addiction. Specifically,
Nothing Shocking era?
Nothing Shocking was an album that I was just addicted to. You know, it kind of relaxed me, and it also sort of took me to a different place, and it was very different in a lot of ways to what we were playing with Suicidal. A lot of what we were doing was really relentless, and it was just intense. So that was music that kind of chilled me out.
And the best Hendrix album is that like Electric Ladyland?
Electric Ladyland, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So anyway, there you go. You know,
thank you.
The magic of Jimi Hendrix and Jane's Addiction and Suicidal Tendencies, and yeah.
Thanks, Robert. Thank you so much for doing the show.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it. And best
thanks
of
for
luck.
having me. Yeah.
Any final words of wisdom for the fans and the internet out there?
Music is magic. Keep supporting it. Go see live bands. If you have young kids, turn them on to music. That's what I've done with my kids, and they love it. They love it all. Doesn't matter the style. Doesn't have to be metal. It doesn't have to be anything real specific. It could be classical. I grew up on classical and jazz and a lot of soul music. As a bass player, soul music was imperative for me. So, take it all in, embrace it, and start a band.